Go ahead and get started. All right, good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock. We'll go ahead and get started with our October 14th, 2024 regular city commission meeting at 6 o'clock. And rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, that moves us on to approval of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the commission?
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
All right, Abby, call the roll.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla.
Yes.
Commissioner Olbrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
All right, moves us along to public comment. This is for items on the consent agenda or not on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you wouldn't mind coming to the podium to state your name and address. All right, seeing none, we'll move along to the consent agenda. That includes regular meeting minutes of Monday, September 30th, 2024, invoice and tax disbursements, resolution for charitable gaming license for Krasl Art Center, Cornerstone Alliance RRC grant agreement, board and commission reappointments, resolution authorizing transfer of unpaid accounts receivable to 2024 winter tax roll, USACE ring buoy and signage license. What's the pleasure of the commission?
I move to accept the agenda as presented.
Support. All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla.
Yes.
Commissioner Olbrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes. All right, that moves us along to 3329, 3363, and 3403 Lakeshore Drive, Four Flags property map amendment rezoning R1A to R3, second and final reading.
So the applicant's requesting rezoning from R1A to R3, multiple family. The 2016 master plan does show this area as mixed use residential, mixed use, which would include multiple family. There's multiple family to the south. To the north, there's some single family homes, and farther north and south of Hilltop are some office and commercial office buildings. So it is a mixed use area. The planning commission recommended approval of it during their meeting in August, or in September. And this is the second reading, and the applicant's here if there's any more questions for him.
All right, any questions or comments from the commission? Again, this is the second reading. We already had the first one at our last meeting. It was approved then. So what's the pleasure of the commission?
I move to approve the second reading of an ordinance to approve zoning map amendment rezoning request by the property owner Four Flags Properties, Inc. for the properties located at 3329, 3363, and 3403 Lakeshore Drive from the R1-A Single Family Residence District to R3 Multiple Family Residence District based on the information included in the August 1st and September 5th, 2024 Planning Commission packets, as the request meets the required factors found under section 22.3 of the zoning ordinance.
I support. Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Sorolla.
Yes.
Commissioner Olbrey.
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes. All right, thank you. That moves us on to the LWCF project agreement, Dickinson Park.
As the commission is aware, as part of the 50-year lease agreement with St. Joe Public Schools for Dickinson Park, the city agreed to construct a restroom and parking lot. As part of that, the city applied for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant through the Michigan DNR in the amount of $520,000. Our total construction is $520,000. The grant amount requested is $260,000. It's a 50-50 matching grant for the restrooms and parking lot. Tonight, as part of the agenda, is a request to approve or accept the project agreement in the form of a resolution, move the project forward Begin work.
Any questions?
Any questions? Oh, there you go.
That's working. Any questions, anybody?
Nope.
No questions.
Sounds good.
All right, what is the pleasure of the commission?
I move to accept the Land and Water Conservation Fund Development Project Agreement for Dickinson Park with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and authorize the city manager to execute the appropriate documents on behalf of the city.
Support.
Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla.
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right, on to item number 13, proclamation, National Friends of the Library Week. I was approached by Nicole Gibby that the city consider the following proclamation during October 20th through October 26th to be National Friends of the Library Week in the city. The proclamation is included in here. Are there any questions or comments on this proclamation? No? All right. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I move to adopt the enclosed proclamation declaring October 20th to 26th to be the National Friends of Library Week in the city of St. Joseph. Support.
Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla,
Yes.
Commissioner Olry.
Yes.
All right. On to item number 14, Assistant City Manager Appointment. Is that you?
That's me.
Mhm.
I am really excited for this one. As you may remember from the last time, there was an assistant city manager appointment. The designation of assistant city manager is made by the city manager, subject to the city commission's approval. I have offered the position to Tim Zebel, our city engineer. I think I made a great choice. He is as knowledgeable as anyone can be about engineering and infrastructure and the city of St. Joseph. And he's as passionate and caring as anyone could be about our infrastructure in the city of St. Joseph. I think he'll be a fantastic second in command. He will be advising and supporting me with all things infrastructure, but not taking on any additional direct reports. He's got a very full plate, so this will sort of spread him a little bit thinner without piling too much on. He will maintain his title as city engineer, so he will be assistant city manager / city engineer. He will be the first backup if I'm ever out, with Steve as the next. And I hope you'll support me in appointing Tim.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the commission?
I think, well, I can speak for myself. We're as excited as you are to have.
Thank you.
Yeah, super solid choice. Anybody that knows Tim knows he's going to do a great job and do more than is expected.
Excellent choice.
Thanks.
Okay, I concur with all the comments here. Welcome, Tim. I guess we need a motion here, so let's make a motion.
I move to approve the city manager's appointment of Tim Zebel as assistant city manager in addition to his current role of city engineer and, oh no, I guess that's just it.
I support.
Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla,
Yes.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Yes.
All right, welcome, Tim. All right, moving us along to item 15, city manager board and commission appointments.
This one has Abby's name on it, but I think it's really supposed to be me. So this one is less exciting. When City Manager Hodgson resigned, or retired, I should say, he did resign from a number of boards that he was appointed to that did not automatically move over to the incoming city manager. That's the Brownfield Authority, the Hospital Finance Authority, WS Job or Water Services Joint Operating Board, and the Twin Cities Area Transportation Study, or Twin Cats. So we talked about it internally. We wanted to make sure it made sense for it to go to the city manager if that was where it was going to go, or if it made sense to move it to someone else. Ultimately, we aligned on appointing the city manager, the new city manager, appointing me to each of those boards. However, we do want to shake things up a little bit as it relates to Twin Cats. You can see here who previously was appointed. It was John as primary for policy with Greg as the backup. Essentially, we want to do some flip-flopping, move Tim as the backup on the policy committee, move Greg to the technical committee, and move Alex Austin up to the primary for the technical committee. So it's a little bit of juggling, but ultimately it's moving the appointment to the city manager and then just getting the right people in the other places.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments?
Makes sense.
All right, wonderful. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I move to appoint Emily Hackworth, City Manager, to the Brownfield Authority, Hospital Finance Authority, WS Job, and the Twin Cats Policy Committee. Additionally, to appoint Tim Zebo as the alternate on the Twin Cats Policy Committee, Alex Austin to the Twin Cats Technical Committee, and Greg Roadhouse to the alternate on the Twin Cats Technical Committee.
Support.
Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Binkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sarola,
Yes.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes. All right, on to audit committee selection.
Okay, so as we're nearing the end of the audit, we need to appoint the audit committee. And the purpose of that will be when we present the audit, we'll do it in 2 steps. The first step will be to the audit committee and staff. And the idea is you can ask specific questions, be more in depth than you could during a normal general session meeting. The second step is to come back to, when it's fully approved, to the commission for approval then. So we need tonight to have 2 commissioners choose to be on the audit committee.
Okay. Who was on it last year? I think it said in here it was
Tessin,
Tessin,
Michael.
Yes,
Michael.
Michael.
Okay. All right.
Who's on it last?
I'll do it.
You want it?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm willing to do it again. I thought it was, a great learning experience last year, and I think it'll be even better for me this year.
Wonderful.
Mike squared. What a team.
All right, we all good with that? I'm
Yeah.
happy with it. Do we need a motion for that then?
I move to designate Commissioner Sarola and Commissioner Fernandez to serve as the audit committee for the review of the 2023-24 audit.
I support.
All right, any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Sarola,
Yes.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes,
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes.
thank you. Moving on to item number 17, tree trimming and removals.
As a commission will recall, in February of 23, you approved the 2-year contract with Chop Tree Service out of the Grand Rapids area to provide tree trimming and removals throughout the city. As part of that contract, Chop provides section and block trimming of designated areas around the city, which has been completed for this year. The contract also includes pricing for trees outside the section trimming area to allow staff the ability to respond to those as they come up. The pricing is based on what's called diameter at breast height, DBH. So we can figure out what the pricing is to trim and or remove the tree based on the size of the tree and have that amount up front instead of having to rely on a contractor to give us pricing for it. So using that pricing, the staff has created a list of trees for trimming and removal, either from resident-driven complaints or suggestions, or just staff noticing trees that are in decline or have died. So the cost for trimming and removal as follows. 23,305 will be charged to local street fund, 4,135 to the major street fund, Parks Division trees, an amount of 7,025, cemetery trees, 4,375. Total cost for all this work is 43,515. The amount to cover this was included in the 2024-25 budget. It should be noted that just over 3,000 will be charged to the Botham Avenue reconstruction project, that will take place next summer. And 975 of local street work is associated with the Dickinson Park project and will be reimbursed by the school district. Any questions?
Nothing. All right. What is the pleasure of the commission?
I move to approve the list of tree trimming and tree removals at numerous locations around the city and to authorize Chop Tree Service to perform the work in the amount of $43,515.
Support?
Any public comment on the matter? All right, Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
On to item number 18, Boys and Girls Club Summer Recreation Program Report.
I don't see Allied.
No,
here.
it's not here.
I don't
Okay.
see Allied.
I think
Do we want to skip this one?
it's under your name, but do,
I do not, I cannot give the update. I have some slides here, but
We could probably just skip it.
you want to skip it?
Put it on the next one.
Yeah. we can
put
just
it on
put
the-
next
put it on
time.
the next one.
All right, let's do that. It's just a report anyways.
Yeah, there's no
Motion,
motion.
okay.
Not timely or urgent, I should say.
Mhm. All right, on to item number 19, recreation vehicle campers, boats and trailers 2024 enforcement update.
So as many of you will recall, the Planning Commission took on this project last fall and worked through early spring, and then at which time they made a recommendation to the City Commission to keep the rules existing. We made some changes, a little more user-friendly. The City Commission predominantly approved the recommendation of the Planning Commission to keep the rules the same so that parking of recreational vehicles, which are campers along with boats, trailers, be located in the rear yard. With that, the amendment was approved. It was, the second reading was approved and it became effective in March. So city staff started working to enforce the document. The rules in the past, they were enforced via complaint driven only. So this year, to remain consistent, everything was enforced. It took public safety department along with the code enforcement person and myself, we were all involved in the code with the enforcement. We started with a brochure that was dropped off at properties where appeared that the equipment was located in the wrong location to give them a heads up. The equipment did not move within a week, then the code enforcement officer went back out again and then DEC followed up with a written formal letter. From there, they were given usually 10 days to move the equipment. If it was not moved, then I would send a second letter out to the property owner saying that their equipment's in the wrong location. During that time, I think we there were 115 properties that received the flyer. Of those, we sent out, the code enforcement officer sent out 19 individual letters. And then I followed up on 3 individual properties and 1 citation was issued during this time frame. And this is until the end of August of this year. During those 26 weeks, that's how it happened. We had 40 campers, 29 boats, 46 trailers. Most of the informational handouts were distributed before Memorial Day with 35 after that, delivered between Memorial Day and Labor Day. If property owners called asking for more time to move their equipment, that was always granted. We did work with everyone we could to get the equipment, give them time to to find a proper location for it, off-site or in a backyard if possible. So that's kind of where we're at. It is kind of a labor intensive thing, but I think it worked fairly well. Those doing the public safety department and the code enforcement officer, they were able to see other things because they were doing the same drive every week for that. So.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from the commission?
I have questions. Thank you, Kristen, for walking through that, and as we heard Kristen walk through, it was labor intensive. And Emily, I had sent that. Is there any way to get that on the screen? I have a paper copy. Yeah, take one, pass it down. I got curious just how much all of that labor might cost. So I did a little bit of calculation of, just how much we paid city staff to do, this process. The numbers were in there, about 4 hours a week, and they're laid out there and should be on the screen for everybody to follow along as well. But when you look at the hourly wage that each of these employees make and the hours a week, the cost was just over $13,000, which to me, the additional cost, beyond the $13,000 that was, essentially paid to them while they did this work. There's other work that could have been done as well. And I have no way to quantify what they could have been doing, other developmental projects, public safety. There's, other public safety matters to attend to beyond, patrolling for campers. There's just so much other work that can be done. I can't quantify what's lost, but I can tell you that it cost $13,000 to perform this process. It's cumbersome, it's labor intensive. Not to mention, the other part of this chart is, the cost that then gets passed on to the resident, our residents, because if they were using, their driveways at no cost to them, yeah, let's just go ahead for estimate's sake on this spreadsheet, $100 monthly storage for their equipment over a 26-week period, you're looking at a potential cost to each family of $650. And this estimate assumes that all of the trailers found a magical place to go for free. I only added an estimated cost for the boats and the campers. And as you can see, that adds up to a cost that our residents will have to pay as a result of this of $45,000. And listening to that and kind of when I worked through and did my math here, it really makes me question what's our return on this investment? Does this policy, does this process of not allowing, on a seasonal basis, RVs and boats, campers in a resident's driveway who's going to use the equipment, does it make us safer in any way? Because in the past, when I've spoken to public safety about this, they are supportive of allowing this. They don't have concerns. Each and every officer that came to my house last summer to ask me to move my camper told me, we don't see a problem with this. We're just simply enforcing the rule. And I asked, we're not safer because of this. Are we more efficient because of this? We just created a new cumbersome process. It doesn't seem efficient. And the time, I think there's a lot of other things that these employees can devote their quality time and work to. Are we more friendly as a city because of this? No. The 119, interactions that we had, we used to average 10 resident complaints a year. 119 new interactions were created on negative touch points. Even though the vast majority of our residents complied, it doesn't mean they liked it. And we're still telling them, hey, move your stuff. And that's why their city is reaching out to them. And that to me is not more friendly. And not all of them were appreciative of that. And if a single one of them moves, that's another cost that this has gone to us. So what does this serve? What purpose does it? With the reality, as I see this, is that we're a lakefront community, that we promote the outdoors and waterways. And then within our borders, we actually have these little rules like this one that make it harder for our residents to actually enjoy that, unless they have the money and they can afford, which $100 might not seem much to some, but $100 is different in everybody's pockets, and this does tangibly make it more difficult for working families to be able to afford the same types of things. And camping and boating is among the lowest cost, recreation that you can achieve. Traveling is expensive in this day and age. This is among the most attainable, and we're making it harder with this rule. In my year on the commission, this is the most Saint no thing that we've ever discussed and done. But I think we can change that, and we can find a workable solution to allow these things and not make it harder for the families that want to do this. We can come up with a simple registration process that city staff can review, that can come up with a few guidelines, making sure that the person that wants to park it in their driveway has enough space on their driveway. Make sure that it's an independent driveway. As I've, gone over this over the last year, I share the concern about a shared driveway. Some simple criteria that I know we can develop to make sure that it's not too close. It's not blocking anything important. I don't see why we can't do that. So I'm asking, the rest of you, how would you guys feel about asking staff to come up with a registration process that would be available to our city residents? And by making this available to our city residents, these are the people that want to use it on a seasonal basis. That assures people that this is not just storage. We already have rules to prevent housing, but this creates a tangible barrier and makes it harder to do these things. And it costs a lot of money to enforce it. And is that worth it? What are we truly protecting at the end of the day?
Well, I will say that a lot of people had a lot of different opinions about this, and that's why we went through the process to come up with what we came up with. I'm willing to see how this goes another year because we just started it. And I think Kristen said that she feels like there'll be much less time devoted to this next year because people know what's expected now.
And what about the cost of the families that are going to have to pay the $100 a month to store it? What do we say to them when we've made this harder for them?
Well, it was an ordinance prior, so they knew that that was something that was supposed to be in effect. So when you move into a place, that that's what you have to do.
Does
I mean,
anybody?
I feel for them. I feel for them that they have to figure that out, but they also can store it behind, correct?
And what if they don't have the space to do that? If they have a driveway long enough to do it, what practical effect does it have? I understand that this rule was enacted in 1968, but just because we have a rule, if it serves no purpose and it causes barriers and there's no benefit for it, why keep a rule simply for the sake of keeping a rule?
Well, I have to represent every resident in the city, and I've had numerous residents come to me thanking me that we did this because they said they did not want to call on their neighbors, but they tolerated it, and they're happy that they don't have to tolerate it anymore. So I'm just saying, it doesn't affect me one bit. I've never had anybody around me do it. I don't have to worry about it. So I'm not saying for me personally, but the people that we represent, I've had a lot of comments of people saying that they're thankful that we have a policy in place now.
And I would argue, especially against this is the most Saint no thing we've ever done. I think that if we are going to operate off a complaint-based system, that is terrible. There is no way that fosters good relationships within the community, neighbor to neighbor, or city to neighbor too. We can't just be enforcing a complaint from somebody. And so I think that this came because we decided that, yes, this was an ordinance that we were going to uphold. And I think it's important that we do uphold it across the board. And so I struggle a little bit with that idea of it, understanding that this truly came from a place of making it equal.
Making a bad rule equal is not an improvement, in my opinion. Can anybody tell me the practical effect? And Michelle, I have those neighbors. 6 calls to the police last summer from 2 neighbors, all to report his campers in his driveway. What practical effect did it have on my neighbors beyond their preference that they do not look at it? Because that is what they have said. And many of the other comments also revolve around, I don't like to look at, they've changed what, that is an opinion. It is a preference. And my question is that visual preference that a few have, is that worth putting a barrier on other families?
I think using that logic, then we should get rid of the property maintenance program because it's the same kind of idea of visual things. We go through the city zone by zone by zone to say, hey, visually, this is starting to fall apart. There's some visual things that people aren't going to like and it helps property values. And so using that logic, we are spending time and resources and money and staff time to go through this property management program. And when I take a look at this particular issue, I just kind of look at it on the spectrum of what's way too strict, what's way too lax. And I guess if I take it to the extreme of if every single house had a sailboat in their driveway, every house in the city of St. Joe, that would be obnoxious and it would be unsightly and it would be, you couldn't see around them. And so where do we draw that line of what do we allow and what do we not? And I think just having a small little trailer on one house in a block, maybe that's not a big deal, but every single home, if they had a sailboat or a trailer, it would be a different story. So it's hard to say, you know, where do you draw that line? And I think the simplest thing is to say, here is what we're going to do. We're going to enforce it across the board. And it's not a personal thing. And I know that there's situations that are becoming personal and that's unfortunate. But the rational way that I have to look at this is what we're doing right now.
Has anybody read the entire packet of the Planning Commission meeting from when they evaluated this? Because if you have, you will see that they did not evaluate, is this possible? They simply revised the language and called it good. The comments that were used specifically by some of the commissioners at the thought of allowing campers were, you know, I have no appetite for this. And then they cleaned up the language and moved on. That was not an equitable review. What I'm proposing is that we have staff look at and give a recommendation of, can places that can do this? I agree, not every house is suitable to even have one of these. Like, we can't make the assumption that just because we say this is fine, that everybody will suddenly do it. Not everybody's going to do that. Not everybody has the space to do that. A simple registration process that evaluates, yep, this property has the space, it's good. Surely we can come up with something, but as we have it today, this, I've already said how I feel.
I agree, but I think the problem is, especially when we look at a city as dynamic as ours, with all of these different neighborhoods and stuff, who is going to make that decision about yes here, no here? That gets into such murky waters. And I don't know who makes that decision. I don't think that's a practical solution.
It shouldn't
'Cause
be all
I-
that complicated to evaluate if the person has enough space on their driveway that they will be completely within their own property, far enough away from any neighboring property, therefore not having any tangible effect or interfering with any public resource whatsoever. But the only argument, you know, it comes down to some people don't like how they look, and that simply should not be good enough to restrict them. If you can give me a tangible effect that one person having a camper in their driveway has on their neighbor, a tangible effect, I am open to that and I will stop talking.
I think the purpose of today was for Kristen to bring this forward to show what the staff has prepared for what we voted on. The Planning Commission discussed it. The Planning Commission brought it back to the commission. The commission voted on it. So it's in place right now. Do we want to give it a year and come back and look at it next year and see if we feel like it, we've only given it 4 or 5 months and see what we've got, but tonight's not a night that we're voting on this.
We can direct
We can
staff
say
to do
we
anything
can-
we want. This
We
is the only
can. I'm not-
opportunity we have.
We could.
And we could wait another year, but that's another $45,000 at minimum that we're going to be costing people. So I'm not okay with that.
I just like to point out in your analysis too, I think it's the primary function for them to go out and do this, but I think along the way, there's probably other work being done. They're assessing other things. Kristen said they found other things. So I don't think you can allocate all $13,000 to this specifically. Although it is the primary objective, other functions are being served on their drive through the city. So I think the assessment here is flawed. That's the point I'm making. There's no question there is some value that you would have to associate to this particular ordinance. But I think that our staff getting out and about and making this trip around the city every week is necessary. Whether this ordinance is in place or not, they have to know what's going on in the city. So just want to point that out. You can't allocate all of that to this particular situation.
The cost to the families is real.
That, again, with the property maintenance program, the cost to the families is real for that too, and that's something we enforce through, issuing tickets and issuing citations and making sure that they comply with that, and that's something that comes along with living in this city. Were you gonna say something?
Just from a procedural standpoint, it would take an ordinance revision. Staff wouldn't be able to make changes that were contrary to the ordinance, so just to point that out.
Which would entail going back to the planning commission.
Yeah, it
Correct.
would.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, well, that was report, so I guess there's nothing to be moved on that one. All right, that moves us along to item number 20, general election reminder. Is that you, Abby?
Yes, that's me. So yeah, this is just a reminder. The 2024 general election is coming up Tuesday, November 5th. This year, we've had 3 ways to vote, so I'm just gonna kind of briefly go over that with everybody. Absentee voting starts first and it is currently underway. Last day to request an absentee ballot, which to get one mailed to you is Friday, November 1st. The clerk's office will be open Saturday, November 2nd from 7 a.m. to 3 for absentee voting, as well as also registering new voters. The last day to pick up an absentee ballot in person at City Hall is Monday, November 4th before 4 p.m. We also have early voting, which is in partnership with Berrien County. The city residents can vote early at the Lake Michigan College Todd Center, which is located on the campus, the Lake Michigan College campus. And that starts October 26th through Sunday, November 3rd. And then of course, on election day, which is November 5th, you can always vote in your precinct. I encourage everybody that's interested in either picking up an absentee ballot or learning more about early voting in person. Please feel free to stop by, talk to the clerk's office. I know a lot of these things are new, but we're happy to help you get an absentee ballot, give you more information on times for early voting, or if you just need to verify your registration and where you vote at in person on election day. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. And don't forget that canvassers are out and about from now until election day. So they're just canvassing.
All right, moves us along to city manager comments.
Thank you. I just thought I'd piggyback on Abby's update and give credit to Abby and her team, Alyssa. It is a huge amount of work to prepare for this election, and I know they'll share numbers in a future meeting, but the numbers are phenomenal, and they're just incredibly impressive. Their work has been fabulous, and we're very lucky to have them on this team.
All right, how about city commission comments? All right, happy Indigenous People Day, and that moves us along to a request to enter closed session.
I move to enter closed session for discussion of strategy regarding negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement pursuant to MLC 15.268.
I support. Okay, any public comment on the matter? Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Binkley,
Yes.
Commissioner Sorolla,
Yes.
Commissioner Ulrich,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes. All right, you're welcome to hang out, but we'll be in closed session until we return. Reporter's already got the code. Nice sign.
Thank you. Do what I can. I will just leave this. Here's our own battery. You know what? I think I can mute this. Okay, sorry.
I move to return to open session.
I support public comment. Abby, call the roll.
Commissioner Sorolla,
Yes.
Commissioner Olry,
Yes.
Commissioner Fernandez,
Yes.
Mayor Thomas.
Yes.
Commissioner Binkley.
Yes.
All right, that concludes our meeting at 7:00 PM.